Hey, Josh Teague, Run T Farms, morning cattle move. Thought I would get a little video here for any of those trying to graze non-selectively. A few things to watch out for. It's a continual kind of process. So I did, just before I moved these cattle this morning, you can see the water tank up there. I did move it. Been moving it every day, so we usually graze 4 breaks a day every morning. Before I move them their first time, I dump the trough out and move it ahead and get it good and at least 3/4 of the way full before I move the cows in there, because they get kind of nervous. Even though they're not thirsty, if they go up to that water trough and they stick their nose in it and it's not got a good bit of water in it, they want to come over there and start panicking and trying to drink the water as fast as it's filling and knocking your trough around. So that's tip one. As we've been grazing out through here, I've had to continually, every day, we've been making our overall grazing area for the day a little bit smaller. We keep overestimating how much forage is in the sward, and the last break of the day, we end up with something like this. This is what I come out here this morning, and as you can see, a lot of 3 feet of forage there that they've kind of walked down on the ground. And I know some people would say that that's fine, that's what you want, but that's not what I've found to give the best results for us. And so we would like to harvest that forage, run it through the cow, let her start the process of cycling nutrients, and go ahead and leave us that's in a more plant available form. We put equal pressure on everything in the sward so that we don't favor one plant over the other, so we don't see a transition from palatable quality species into unpalatable subquality species of grass. So that's why we graze non-selectively. So I've given them less area today. We're grazing the whole grazing cell for today will be a little less than a half an acre. I think about 4/10 of an acre that we're giving them, basically 1/10 of an acre at a move. We'll monitor the cows at the end of the day. We want them good and full when we come to move them into that last move. So we want their bellies good and full at that at the beginning of that 4th move, so that we make sure that we haven't limited these animals. So this is the first move of the day, and you can see that their bellies were not empty when I got here this morning, which I don't want them completely empty, but we've also obviously they had plenty to eat, and they didn't eat everything that we put on offer. And now this forage is basically lost to these cattle, because as you can see, there's just manure and urine everywhere that they've walked across. They're naturally going to step in this manure and urine, and they just foul the rest of the grass. So this grass is gone. It's lost to the cattle. We can hopefully, the soil microbes will take this in, but I believe it's much better to go ahead and run that through a cow, let the dung beetles bury it. As you can see, there's no bare exposed soil here, but it's in a plant available form much quicker, and we don't lose nearly as much to oxidation or anything like that once we run it through the cow. So this also affords us, because I think there's 84 head or something in this group of mature cows, and a few 2-year-old heifers that's in here, and we're grazing less than a half acre a day, about 4/10 of an acre a day. So it will be a long rest period. We probably won't graze this area again until this winter, so it's basically going to be allowed to stockpile probably from now until sometime this winter before we get back to it. So shooting for a high harvest efficiency and a very high conversion efficiency. We want to convert this forage into beef and fat for these cows Here's a shot just on the other side here. Got a couple moves set up, but this was grazed, I don't know, at this point it's probably about 3 or 4 days ago. We got a really good graze on this, good non-selective graze. There's where dung beetles been mining up dirt, but already this was grazed, this particular spot where I'm standing, probably 85, 90, 95, probably closer to 90-95% harvest efficiency. And if you'll notice, already regrowth on this grass, and people will say, oh, but that's coming out of the root reserves. Well, sure it is, which is what we want. So this stuff had a really strong root reserve in it, and that's the way grass is designed to grow. So in 2 days time, we've already got some 3 inches of growth coming back out of some of these, and it's all initiating regrowth. And the great thing about it is that's all leaf. There's no stem there. So the leaves are the power plants of the grass. They are what convert solar energy into root exudates energy to feed the soil life. So the stems, all the stems that's left, which our cattle have grazed off, most of these stems, they respire energy. So they use energy, and the leaves produce energy for the plant and for the soil. And since we know that 80% of soil organic matter, or humus, is created by root exudates, not what you leave laying on top of the ground, that amounts to only about 15 to 20% of soil organic matter. So is it important to leave the ground covered? Sure, yes. You can see we've got our ground covered with manure, urine, leftover grass. But there's no bare soil here. We're gonna catch all the rainfall, but we have used 90% of the forage that was here. But when you're grazing forage that's 40 inches tall and you use 90% of it, the 10% that you leave behind, very adequate amount to keep the soil covered. And plus you get sunlight down to the growing points on these plants. So we will expect a very high quality regrowth here on this when it is ready to graze again. But like I said, we actually probably won't graze this again until this winter, just because with the getting the lease on this new farm, we find ourselves understocked at the moment. So a lot of people, if they was understocked, they'd just throw their cows out there and say, well, I got more grass than I got cows. Why take the time to graze properly? It doesn't matter. But we think it does matter, because we know that it helps the soil, it helps our cattle, and that's what it's all about. We want healthy soil, healthy cattle, and so we can produce healthy grass-fed beef for my family and for everybody else's family that trusts us to grow their 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, chemical-free, birth to harvest beef. There's a few other producers out there that do what we do, but there's not many if you start questioning them. So all of the animals that we slaughter, harvest, are born on this farm, raised on this farm, grazed on this farm. They never leave our farm except up until the day that they get on the trailer to go to the processor. So we have complete 100% accountability of how that animal was treated, what that animal's eaten, and most importantly, what it's not had poured all over it. We don't use any chemical fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, no fly tags, no insect growth regulators, none of that. We do it strictly 100% with nature and the management of our cattle and genetics. So just a shot this morning. Sorry I got a little bit long-winded. One more thing I'll point out here that I forgot to mention. So I have set a back fence on these cattle this morning. We have them access to shade over there at that tree line, And since cattle are creatures of habit, they will go over there because they like shade. Actually, some of our Moshona cross cattle, I came out yesterday evening, and I guess we're just getting too far from the shade to suit them. It was 93-degree heat index, and they were just laying out here in the middle of the sun, ruminating, quite happy, while the straight Angus cattle were holed up over there in the shade. They just seem to be almost impervious to the hot, humid weather here. So grazing Kentucky 31 fescue. It was a 93-degree heat index, and they were just laying out here ruminating as comfortable as they could be. But the reason I have this back fence set is because nutrient transfer is a real thing. So if I didn't have it set right now, even though it's not hot yet, it will get hot today. These cattle would go get their bellies full, get them a drink of water, then they would go over there and lay down in the shade. And when they got ready to graze again, they would stand up, poop, pee over there, and then they've essentially moved all of the nutrients from this area that they were grazing and deposited them over there at the shade. So since there's no need for shade, we probably won't even offer them shade till around that 1 o'clock cattle move, and then I will take this back fence down and give them a little bit of access to shade there for the hottest part of the day. But that keeps the nutrient transfer. We want the manure and urine out here on the ground, on the grass where they're grazing, not piled up under the shade tree. So that's bad for the trees. It can get nutrient overload and kill the trees. So that's what we do. I think once we finish out getting our herd sort of transitioned over to our Moshona Angus composite that we're building, from what I'm seeing so far, the availability of shade is going to be very much decreased, because now even when they have the option of going and getting in the shade, our Moshona Angus cross don't even really seem to take advantage of that. They'll just lay down and begin to ruminate wherever they're at when they get ready to do that. So I hope everybody has a fantastic day. As always, you can check us out online at runningtbeef.com. You can like us on Facebook at runningtbeef. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button on the way out. And I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their week.